3 a.m. Welcome back. This is News and Views on Salam Media. And next, we're going to be talking with immigration law attorney, and that is Ashraf Essop. We're looking at government drafting a new unified bill to overhaul citizenship and immigration laws. And when I saw that I was going to be talking with Ashraf this morning about this matter, I kind of wondered, is this in light of the current situation in South Africa, the acts against illegal immigrants and other immigrants as well? Is this, or is it just a coincidence that this has come about? And once this law is passed, is it going to bode well for immigrants coming to our country? And then what, of course, will be the state of illegal immigrants? But that, of course, is a matter regarding, I suppose, securing our borders and a whole host more. But let's hear what Ashraf Essop has to say about it. As I've indicated, he is an immigration law attorney. Assalamu alaikum to you, Ashraf. Welcome to the program. Nice chatting with you this morning.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, and thanks for having me.
Okay, I had a very long introduction regarding my thoughts on this matter. I might be very far off the mark, but fill us in on why this is happening at this point in time and how it's going to possibly radically change immigration laws in our country.
Well, I don't think it's opportunistic or it's happening at the right time. The immigration law reforms, the white paper was passed already in 2017. So, it's almost 9-10 years. Now, it sought to overhaul immigration completely. So there were lots of issues regarding how people came into the country, how they acquired rights, how they were hosted here, and what happens when they left the Republic. The reforms are quite extensive. It covers a number of areas, including citizenship by birth, descent, etc. Then there's issues of immigration, and lastly of refugees. I think the current situation that you're referring to refers to undocumented migrants. And we know from the media what has happened recently, whether it's unlawful or just populist sentiment. We're not going to discuss that. What we're discussing is the white paper. Now, previously, there was a belief that if you were born in South Africa, then you had certain rights. Of course, that is true. If you were born to South African parents or prior to the amendments, if one of your parents were permanent residents, then you were deemed to be born a citizen. If you were a citizen by descent, that was taken into account. So all of these things were basically subject to a lot of abuse. For example, there was a situation where there was, late birth registration, and the department wasn't able to keep up with all of these records. So the first thing is now the digital migration to birth certificates. All of this will be dealt with at the hospital. If you are born to foreigners, then you follow the citizenship of your parents. There are exceptions to this case. In the matter of Jose in the Constitutional Court, Jose had come from Angola, was born in the Republic, but had not been able to access the citizenship of his parents who were from Angola. The reason being that they were unable to return to Angola and they were stripped of their citizenship. So that refers to an exception called statelessness. The Constitution says you are not allowed to be stateless. And if it is that you were born in the Republic and your details were captured in the Birth and Deaths Registries Act, then you are a citizen by basically descent. Except that your parents were no longer allowed citizenship of their own country, statelessness was not allowed, and now you are deemed to be a South African citizen. So that's one of the exceptions. Now we're also moving to a biometric system for digital identification, which will basically capture every detail of all South African citizens. When we come to citizenship by naturalization, the department is really looking at how immigrants that remain in the country, either through work, marriage, or by investment, are allowed, or in fact, refugees who are here indefinitely, are allowed to apply for permanent residence. And ultimately, permanent residence follows through to citizenship after a period. So, again, there isn't going to be too many people granted permanent residence on those bases. And then ultimately, you have the immigration reforms, which will basically create a new category of work visas. So, right now, in respect of work, you're allowed to work in the Republic, and if you're under critical skills, then seek employment in that sector. But it's points based. So, you have to earn 100 points, and there's various ways of earning that. If you're if you're a person with a critical skill and that skill is on the list, then you immediately get your 100 points, but you also have to show that you have employment. Now, you'll find those in the IT sectors, etc., that have a master's level in one of the critical skills, um, and basically that qualify you for your 100 points. It's now presently very difficult in terms of a general work visa. You also have to earn 100 points, but in terms of the NQF level, which has to be approved by SAQA, you have to earn at least between 8 and 10 points. You have to earn your salary between 600 and 900,000. You have to have 10 to 15 years experience. You have to be proficient in the language. So you can see that the bar is very, very high for general work visas. But again, the reforms appear to point to, again, a points-based system, but a merging of the two kinds of visas. Then they're re-looking at business visas, and it's no longer just going to be an application and an approval. You have to show that it's in the national interest. Now, the national interest really points to two things. You have to create jobs and uh, pass on skills. So again, you can see there's huge reforms coming in that regard as well. Lastly, and topically, the rights of refugees. It's well known that South Africa had porous borders, poor management by Home Affairs, and of course, criminal syndicates, which allowed lots and lots of people to be trafficked into South Africa. By that, I mean you could be willingly trafficked or you could be illegally trafficked. So they found themselves in South Africa, and one of the things that has always been there, and in fact was reaffirmed in the Constitutional Court decision last week of Scalaregrini, is the fact that a refugee or an applicant for asylum is entitled to enter at the port of entry and is given a 5-day transit visa to approach a refugee reception office, for example, the one in Pretoria or Musina. So that will entitle him to give his story, and a decision is made at the RR, refugee reception officer, standing officer, and he will decide if there is validity in the claim. And then it goes through a long process and ultimately ends up maybe with a judicial review. But there, the overarching protection for the applicant is that of refoulement. So the decision last week said you can't automatically exclude persons that don't enter from a port of entry and don't make it in 5 days. It's merit based. You got to listen to each and every applicant and determine if the claim is valid or not. It can't just be that you're locking out everyone. Now, the immigration reforms or the refugee reforms envisage, and this was already in the 2017 paper, camps at the borders. So if you come in, and you get the visa, transit visa, you'll immediately be taken to a camp and await the outcome there. So, in the long term, people applying for refugee and asylum permits are not excluded. It's just that they are kept at the border until the matter is determined. So, just very broadly speaking, those are the areas that are looking in terms of the bill to be reformed.
Ashraf, that was a very, very insightful and comprehensive response to this matter. There's still a few other things I do need to put to you. I want to ask about biometrics, and there seems to be a push against biometrics, but let's look at that right after the ad break. Please stay with us. Okay, I've just been told that we don't need to go for a break right now. So, why do you suppose there seems to be this push when we talk about biometrics and the whole issue around digital? Let me not even say digitization. This is obviously in keeping with worldwide standards, is it not? So I kind of wonder, why is there pushback against biometrics?
Even if there's a pushback, I think the ultimate reality in South Africa is Green Book IDs are done for, and the previous smart cards that we had didn't really carry the essential details, biometric details. So ultimately, you'll find yourself without a passport. You'll have a digital footprint wherever you are in the world. It could, of course, it includes all your biometrics, maybe your iris, maybe your fingerprints, facial recognition, whatever is necessary in terms of pushing towards a single identification document that is accepted around the world. Now, why is there pushback? I actually don't know the answer to that. What I do know is the ultimate reality is everyone will, willingly or unwillingly, have to be in possession of such a smart digital biometric based identification card.
That obviously is keeping with global standards, is it not? So perhaps this is a step in the right direction as far as our government is concerned.
Well, I believe it is universal. Yes, it's not specific to us, but we have the ability. In fact, I mean, the Home Affairs has been remarkable in how much attention they've paid to this. There are even DIY kiosks at banks, and you can do it in 3 minutes.
Wow. Okay. My next question has to do with the Department of Transport. I'm not sure if you'd be able to respond. I think you will. But let's just look at this. Cabinet ministers on the committee, on this particular committee, stated that the Department of Transport is developing new regulations to curb the misuse of traffic registration numbers as a form of identification. This initiative reinforces ongoing efforts to improve the integrity of official identity systems. I think it talks to the previous question I put to you, which you responded to, but if you could just broaden on that matter, please.
So, one of the lacunas or vacuums in the entire process was obviously using your driver's license as an identification card. And again, with the push, you remember we initially had paper driver licenses, and that morphed into a card, and now that's going to also be included in your digital ID. But what the Interministerial Committee also found was an abuse of identification. So if you were stopped um, and you didn't have any other form of identification to show who you were, then you would display your
Ah,
driver's license, and that would then allow you. But there's a push on two ends here. One is not to allow foreign migrant drivers to operate on South African roads without proper work visas. As you can imagine from what I said earlier, it's
mhm.
it's practically impossible, and then to have the proper permits to carry, to operate on South African roads. One of the most surprising things that perhaps wasn't made, very public, is the fact that foreign migrants were entitled to RAF payouts, road accident fund payouts. And, the courts have said that they're entitled to that as well. Well, that bill from the RAF was in a few hundreds of millions, and again, I think that was one of the areas that they were trying to readdress. Who exactly is allowed to ride on the roads? Are they permitted? Do they have the proper license? Because you need to have all of those in order to prove your claim as a claimant in the road accident fund matter.
Ashraf, we're going to leave it there. If there's anything else of importance that we need to be aware of as far as this new bill is concerned, the white paper, please do share with me, but very briefly and also very quickly. I just want to make a comment. Perhaps you're more with this matter than I am. You've brought up the issue around the road accident fund, but I think I'd heard or read somewhere recently that the road accident fund was in fact bankrupt. So is that one of the reasons why there is this tightening of payouts from the RAF to migrants?
No, I think the judgment was very clear that everyone is entitled to equal protection in terms of the Constitution. The RAF has been traditionally bankrupt year on and every year. So that's got nothing to do with the claims by migrants. Everyone was treated under the equality clause, and that is why the courts held that everyone is entitled to that. We pay for the RAF through our petrol, so even the
Mhm.
foreigners had contributed to the fund. So the court was saying you can't discriminate in the same way that they have a right to education and healthcare, etc.
Okay, thank you indeed. As I indicated earlier on, really very comprehensive. Is there anything of importance that we need to know before I let you go?
Look, it's an ever changing, almost like a daily scenario. So one has to keep up with the changes
Ah.
and see how the courts interpret a lot of these. Legislation is one thing, but because we operate under a separation of powers, the courts will be the ultimate, I think, commentators on whether a step is legal or not.
Attorney Ashraf Essop, you are obviously an immigration law attorney. Thank you indeed for your insights. We do appreciate it. Go well. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thanks for having me.
8:50 exactly, news and views moving along. Thank you for being with us thus far. Lots more coming your way. Please stay with us.